Welcome to another episode of Sanctaury Radio. This is a podcast brought to you by Sanctaury Recovery Centers. Our mission is to break the stigma surrounding addiction, to empower others to live addiction-free lives, providing hope to those who suffer from addiction and offer continued care and true healing. All right, here we are, another episode of Sanctaury Radio. Two of the finest, what does it say in the big book? The finest specimen of manhood as one could ever wish to meet. And I'm sitting here in the presence of two of the finest specimen. And first I want to introduce my co-host. We got Justin here, New Method Healing Center, longtime personal friend, community liaison. He's out there business development, man. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I got to give a shout out to my normal co-host, Haley, out there in Oklahoma, pounding the pavement, out there door knocking, getting with the hospitals and the institutions, man, just spreading the Sanctaury Recovery Center's message and working on that intake out there in Oklahoma. So big shout out to Haley.
Shout out, Haley.
Oh, you gonna give her one too?
Yeah, we're gonna give her one, holding it down out there in Oklahoma.
Give her a shout out. But our guest today, again, man, this is just a proud moment for me just to share this opportunity. But we have on the show today, we got Ron on the show, a.k.a. Ronnie No Matter What, a.k.a. the newest member of the Sanctaury team. Ron's in the building. Welcome, Ron.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me be here. This is kind of a special moment. You know, we'll get into it, but 14 years ago, did you ever think we'd be sitting here together?
I mean, it's like I said, it's a surreal moment. You know, it's the same thing, man, you know, with Justin and sitting here with him today and you and, you know, a lot of the people we have on the show, you know, personal friends, Sanctaury Recovery team, you know, our journey starts just so far beyond where we're at today. And it's just awesome to experience these types of moments. But we got Ron on the show today. And so, Ron, like you said, you know, this is 14 years in the making right here. And, you know, it is a proud moment to share with you. But why don't you just give everyone, anytime anyone ever comes onto the show and they're a personal friend or we have history, I think it's always important for all of our listeners all across the nation to really just hear, you know, the experience and the strength and the hope that comes from your message, but also how we all know each other. So why don't you just take a little bit, just an opportunity first, just to kind of share, you know, how we met and, you know, why this moment is so special. So why don't you take that opportunity?
Okay, so when we met, it was a point in my life when things were very chaotic. I had just recently found methamphetamine.
Oh, you did? Just recently?
Yeah, introduced that into my life after years of being a crack cocaine addict and a heroin addict. And then I found meth, and it changed a bunch of things for me because, number one, what it did is it cured me of a 25-year crack cocaine addiction. So my
instantly,
you know, I did meth and I never smoked crack again. So what my mind told me was, well, wait a minute, we've been overreacting all these years. Maybe I'm not a drug addict. I was just doing the wrong drug. And, you know, we know that to be false, right? So for me, I was able to be productive in a sense because I was a telemarketer.
Oh, hold up.
Oh, we know about the telemarketing.
Shout out to all the telemarketers.
Shout out telemarketers.
I mean, Justin, you know a little something about telemarketing, don't you? And we were just talking about this earlier. You know, me and Justin, if you listen to his episode on, you know, Sanctaury Radio was one of the most viewed episodes that we've had. If you haven't had a chance to hear his message, that episode, I encourage you to search it out and you know, have a good listen at that. But what did you tell me when we were on the yard? We were in the prison yard together and we were doing a success plan, and your success plan was what, Justin?
Oh, instantly, you know, I've been a salesman, telemarketing game the whole time, and I said, when I get out, I'm going back to the phone rooms. That's where I know how to make money. I make lots of money scamming people. I'm going to do it for the first year.
Just the first year.
Just the first year.
Get on my feet.
Get a car.
Get a car.
And you straight up told me, you are not working in telemarketing.
Yeah, we're not doing that,
We're not doing that. We're going to work in recovery. And I did not believe you at the time. I did not believe you. I never imagine this is where we would all be at right
Sure.
now.
Yeah, and it's like I said, the history, and it's one thing to believe in a higher power, like we talk about. So it's such an essential piece of a full, program of recovery. It's one thing to believe, and this is how we experience that power working in our lives. So back to you, Ron. So you're in this point in your life where you found meth, and so now it made you even in your mind even more amazing of a telemarketer, right?
Yeah.
And so why don't you pick back up there?
So here I am working at a large call center, and I had just become general manager. I had taken over this business, and I was making a lot of money. And before I had got the general manager's job, I was a closing manager, and I was pretty decent. I closed a good amount of deals on the floor. So when I became general manager, there was a big hole, like 15 deals a week that weren't on that floor anymore. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to get those. And earlier on that day, a couple of guys had walked in and asked for jobs. One of them was you.
Yeah, I need that job.
Yeah.
First off, I was at Crossroads, and they finally let me get a job. After self-knowledge I gained from my recovery in 16 days in the Right Track program, they taught me everything I needed to know to fight this addiction for the rest of my life. 16 days, they say, get a job. I said, where's the telemarketing spot at? They said it's an hour away. And not to mention, I door knocked windshields the whole way there. I think I sold 2 and used your fax machine to fax the jobs in.
Yeah.
And so I came into your office, and that's where we first met.
Yeah, and when you came in, I didn't even know your name, right? You came in, I said, get on the phone. And
yeah, you pretty disrespectful.
Yeah, I was pretty disrespectful, yeah. Got on the phone, because, a lot of the times in that environment, someone's there and then they're not there the next day, right? So anyhow, I'm in the office and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to produce the deals I need to maintain what we were doing. And all of a sudden, over the hum in the phone room, I hear it just cut through me, and I heard this voice say, "Hey, did you get my email?" Real loud. And I looked up, out the window, and I seen you standing there. And you had the headphones on, and they were turned sideways, and you're pacing back and forth, and you didn't know what you were selling. You didn't even know how much it was. I don't think at the time. You were just talking.
No, you didn't tell me anything, man. You gave me a script, and you said, "This is what we're doing." I said, "All right, I got it."
And from that moment, I knew that you had that swag to you, and you and I instantly became friends. We sat down together, and we were on a call together, and you got to hear me unload everything I had on a particular person on the phone, and we didn't get the deal. But what happened from that is you heard every rebuttal and objection, and from that point on, you became one of the highest producers in the room within a week. We became friends, and the journey began for us.
Yeah, I mean, the journey really began. I remember, Justin, he was closing this deal. He's sweating, you know what I mean? He found meth, so he was extra sweating, you know what I mean? He started unbuttoning the shirt. He cuts the shirt off. He's in the wife beater, right?
Pop locking with no shoes
Yeah,
on.
pop locking, dude. He's fucking getting in the zone, you know what I mean? He's giving this dude everything he got, and then he hits him for the credit card number, and he goes, click, and he hung up.
It was great. I got the first 4 digits. I'll never forget. It was a Discover.
Yeah, it was the
6011 click.
Yeah, click, and it's true, man. We became friends, and we started this journey, that leads to this surreal moment, and we had a business together, which we'll pick up, more, into your journey later on. But every journey starts somewhere, and we were talking before we started to air the podcast, and just how all 3 of us have such a similar story, right? Sure. Everybody's trauma looks different, everybody's story's different, but ultimately it leads to the same, 3 places: jails, institutions, or death, right? And we all made it to the institutions. We all fought death. And here we are today living the promises and the blessings like recovery gives you, and what Sanctaury is trying to. And so is New Method. New Method, man, they're a sister company to us. We work hand in hand with them, at all times. And we provide, what do you say? What kind of recovery do we provide, Justin?
We provide real recovery, not just relief.
Yeah, right? That real deal, Holyfield recovery. Mm-hmm. And so every journey starts somewhere, Ron. So why don't you just take a moment to share what it was like growing up in New York? Shout out Yankees. Rochester, New York, Fairport. My sister out there in Rochester. Big shout out, Nicole. And so why don't you just share the family dynamic, what it was like growing up?
Sure. So real briefly before I get into that, I think what's important is, as we were sitting here talking briefly about our own individual stories and where we've been and how we got there, I'm a firm believer in this, right? Nothing happens in God's world by mistake. I don't care what your belief system is. I don't care how you were brought up. For me, now sitting back, I can see that everything was for a designed reason, right? All the interactions, the people that I meet along the way, good and bad, have all led to this moment. So, and that's true when we're young, when we're children. You know, we all, as men, 3 men sitting here, trauma is a big part of men's lives in recovery. Now, when you say trauma, a lot of the times people think of physical or sexual abuse, which is true in a lot of cases, but trauma comes in all different forms, right? Those false narratives that we pick up when we're a child, not even necessarily from somebody telling us, but what our little brains are telling us what's going on because we don't know how to communicate. And for me, there was a lot of different forms of trauma as a child. I grew up around good people. My family, both sides of my family were good people, and they tried their best to raise me the right way. You know, I knew the difference between right and wrong. I was taught manners, and somewhere along the line, I made a series of decisions based off this false narrative I had in my head, and this false narrative was I didn't matter. I felt like I didn't matter. Now, it's not because anybody told me I didn't matter, but that's what I believed, right? Because there was things that happened, like when my parents separated, and as a young child, you don't understand what's going on there,
I mean, your
right?
dad was a rock and roll drummer.
Yeah, my dad was a drummer. My mom was a nursing student, and they got together.
Shout out Pops.
Man, yeah, you know, Pops and my mom, they have, like your parents, have rode this out with me and all the pain that I've caused them. And it's one of the honors I have in my life that I get to call my mom every morning and have a cup of coffee with her, you know, since I've been out of prison. So anyhow, growing up, you know, my mom raised me for a few years by herself, a single mom, because she had pushed my dad away because she didn't feel his lifestyle was conducive to raising a young child. You know, growing up,
I mean, Justin lived that rock and roll lifestyle. I mean, we're sitting here with Justin hacked into his this just popped into my head. Justin hacked, listen to Justin's episode. I think the tagline on that is like, you know, biker gang to, you know, recovery all-star, right? He hacked into his old Facebook. He's sending me pictures with him sitting with Sonny Barger and, you know, AK-40s. I mean, checks out, brother. Not to say I didn't believe you, but I got the proof now. We might have to post one of those pictures. But anyway, sorry, back to that.
That's okay.
Yeah, back to that.
So, you know, growing up, I always felt a little different, right? I always felt like I didn't fit. And the weird thing was I was one of those people that I could fit into any crowd, right? I would change who I was to be able to fit into whatever group. I got along with everybody. I really didn't have a lot of enemies growing up. And then, you know, when I was in high school, I loved wrestling. That was my thing. But just like I heard you say many times before, there was something that you would always hear about me, especially in school, with my grades, with my athletics. They would say, you have so much potential, but because I never applied myself. Because I was able to get by just on charisma and sure wit. And then in high school, I find alcohol and weed. And from that moment, as soon as I ingested that first chemical into my body, I had an abnormal reaction. I didn't know that that's what it was, but it changed everything for me. You know, I was able to be the guy that I wanted to be because, as I said, I felt like I didn't matter. And I felt like I didn't fit. But when I drank and I got high, I fit.
Right, and I can relate to that big time because I felt like I didn't matter, right? My life didn't matter. I, at one point in time, tried to commit suicide multiple times. I didn't want to live, right? And, you're talking about in school academically, you're not making it, because when we believe that we don't matter and we feel bad about ourselves, we're not going to perform academically. We're not going to do the right things. We're not going to be that standout person. And when we drink and use the producers affected by alcohol and drugs, we feel good. Like, it takes that all away.
Sure.
Yeah, we drink because we like it. That's why I do. That's why I do drugs and alcohol, because I like it.
I can
That's why.
live in my own skin now, right? I feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, from there, after high school, I make a few kids. I have a couple kids that I wasn't there to raise or to be there for, and that's something that as I sit back today, that's still a huge regret I have in my life, right? That I wasn't able to pull it together enough for these children and for the women that their only fault was they loved the guy who didn't love themselves, So moving forward from then, in the early 90s, back in New York, I find crack cocaine.
Oh, hold up.
Game changer. For me, crack cocaine, I was a binge user. I was the guy who would get a job or start a business or start hoarding all this money and build this bright future like the big book talks about for everybody around me. My family would go, look, there he is. He's doing it. He's got this. And then I would pull that structure down upon everybody's head. But I had the unique abilities. When I pulled that structure down on everybody's head, I'd get out of the way.
Called the fear of success right there, brother.
There's that too. Yeah, there's that too.
Sure.
That couples. Fear touches every aspect of our lives, because when all three of us do what we want to do, our actions feed right into every single fear that we have, and that's why we're completely consumed by fear. And we say drugs and alcohol makes us fearless, but that's not the case, because there's so many fears. Especially when you start throwing any type of drug that you become physically dependent on, dude. Right. I have a fear of being dope sick every minute of the day, even when I'm high.
Right, even when you have a pocket full.
Yeah, I'm always in fear. And so, you find, crack cocaine, and, what comes with that?
Crack cocaine and heroin, and I became, again, referring to the book, right? You want to talk about pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization.
You got 3 big book thumpers sitting right here right now. So
you're going to hear some big book stuff.
Yeah, I apologize in advance if you're a smart recovery guy, because you're not going to hear much of that today.
Yeah, no. So,
got that right.
Here I am doing crack, and I would go on binges. I would go on these 2-3 week crack cocaine binges where I would spend as much money as I could possibly get my hands on. And then along the way, I had a friend. That was like, I was a supervisor at a roofing company. I made really good money.
Shout out to all the roofers out there. I'll plug one right now. Mission Restoration. Shout out to all the guys.
Adam Tronyer.
Yeah, you know what it is. Tronyer.
Yeah.
And my friend, his name was Eric. He would see me. I would get a huge paycheck on Friday, and then on Monday when I came to work, I'd be bumming cigarettes from the crew. And he knew what I was doing, and one day he
have a big old blister on your lip. Justin, you ever had a blister on your lip from smoking crack all night? No comment?
Hey, maybe the 10-2 rolling the meth pipe, but crack really wasn't my thing, only a couple times.
Okay, my bad.
So he introduced me to heroin. He's like, here, man. And he gave me a bag of heroin, and he said, this will fix things. It will level you out so that you're not all amped up all the time, and you won't spend all your money in 24 hours.
Commonly referred to as the upper downer cycle.
The upper downer.
Write that down, Justin.
So right away, now I'm addicted to heroin and crack. And again, it's the same thing, right? We don't have to get into all the stories about it, but it was just this vicious cycle of drugs and alcohol, and me wanting to get sober, and me telling everyone I'm going to do it this time, and I mean it. And if you hooked me up to a lie detector, I would have passed, because I didn't want to use anymore, and I didn't want to hurt people anymore. But I just continued to keep getting loaded, because when I was, when I'd be restless, irritable, and discontented, there was only one thing that would make that go away. I didn't know it then, but I know it to be now. I had a God-sized hole, and I tried filling it with any kind of substance I could. Females, money, it didn't matter, but drugs just fit for me. And then I get this physical dependence to it, and it was a pretty vicious cycle to the point to where my aunt finally put me on a bus, right? She was like, when you're not doing this to the family.
You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here anymore.
Can't stay here. Shout out Aunt Lou.
Yeah,
you know?
Aunt Lou.
You know, she put me on a bus and sent me out to Arizona, and
The rest is history.
the rest is history, right?
I mean, and we're talking about coming from New York, and yeah, they got this thing called humidity out there, and you know, the East Coast, and big ass mosquitoes the size of pigeons.
Yeah.
And you know, you come out here and it's hot. You know, my family because I'm from, all my family's from New York as well, and they come out here for Christmas and they're going swimming. Right? Like, it's time to go. The pool is perfect, right?
For sure.
You know, you come out here, and did you come out in the summertime?
So let me show you. I get here in August.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
So here's
wind blows on you, and it's like a hot blow dryer.
Yeah. So I'm on this Greyhound all the way across the country. And it's a nightmare because when I was in Cleveland, the only $50 I had in my pocket, I ended up buying some crack at the bus station. So I went the rest of the journey without any money and no cigarettes, and just doing my thing to be able to get my basic needs. And as we're getting towards Mesa.
Mesa, too?
Yeah.
You went to Mesa?
I did.
First experience for Arizona, you're in Mesa.
Yeah, and I'm on the US 60 on this Greyhound, and I'm looking out the window, man, and I'm tripping. We're coming from AJ to Mesa, and I'm tripping. I'm looking at all the banana trees. Oh. Yeah, I see all the palm trees, you know what I mean? Yeah. And people on the bus are like, what is this dude tripping about? And when I got here and I got off the bus, I was wearing a black sweatsuit, hoodie.
Oh, you had the Italian starter kit on?
I did have the Italian starter kit on.
Yeah.
I was coming off methadone, coming off crack. I was hungry. I was confused. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I get here, and it's 115 degrees, man. And I'm like, oh, my God, where did they send me? Like, I thought it was Mars.
Yeah.
But something did happen when I got off the bus. The guy from the halfway house picked me up, and he made me some promises. And one of the promises he made me, he said that if I gave myself to this simple program, I would have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And it had been forever since anyone had, and when I heard it this time, I heard some hope. I heard that, hey, I can do this, because this guy shared with me he was a junkie from New York, and he turned his life around, and now he was living out here prospering. And that's what we do in the rooms, right? And that's what we do in our lives and in our career is we use ourselves, the light that's inside of us, to show other people that it can be done, because we're connectors. That's what we do, right? We connect people with sobriety. We connect people with services that will help them. All three of us, that's what we do.
Right.
And
just
go ahead, Justin. First off, shout out Safe and Sound Sober Living. If you need to get a sober living spot, man, hit up Justin. He is that guy. Shout out Safe and Sound.
All right. So, and how you talked about where Jason in the beginning knew nothing about telemarketing, and he started to learn, and he listened to everybody around him and started to take bits and pieces of their words. Everything in recovery is not new. Somebody said or done it before us, and they're laying the groundwork out, right? They do give us that glimmer of hope and show us the way.
Sure.
Yeah, one thing that I argue with old timers about, where it says the book is meant to be suggestive only. They're suggestions. Dude, they're directions, bro. It tells me exactly what I got to do. If I want what the first 100 had, who recovered and had amazing lives and the promises and the blessings, I got to do what they did. They're directions.
Clear-cut instructions, right?
That's what it says. I mean, I point that out, and there is a solution at the very end where it says further on are clear-cut directions.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I read this article in this book somebody had given me about the big book and Bill Wilson. And on Bill Wilson's deathbed, they asked him if there was one thing, this guy was interviewing him, and he said, was there one thing that you would change about AA? And he said, yeah, there's something I would change. And what he would change is the whole rarely have we seen a person fail. He said, I have never seen a person fail that has thoroughly followed our path. And that's how strongly.
Yeah, he said he changed one thing, and that one thing is one word. He would change rarely to never.
Never, right.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we do, right? We don't, I look at it like this, guys. there's that mountain up there, and there's a trail that leads.
There
to
is
the
a
top
mountain
of
and a trail up there,
right?
as a matter of fact.
And if we want to get to the top of that quickly and safely, we're going to follow the trail.
I mean, we even got production. He's looking over there, too.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, there is a trail. There is a mountain up there. Yeah, we're seeing it. Yeah.
So why in the world would I try to climb up this front of it where there's no trail?
Cliff.
And there's snakes and cactuses and all kinds of danger. Well, that's how I look at addiction. I don't have to make my trail. All I have to do is follow the men and the women who have blazed that trail already and do what they suggest, right? And follow the instructions.
Yeah, the Oregon Trail. You play that game in school?
Yeah, I mean, I used
we all
to
play that
always
game in
just
school?
sink
I
it.
think we all did.
Yeah, we're all hunting. I got me a buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna hunt on the Oregon Trail.
Making hay.
Yeah.
Baling hay.
Yeah. Yeah,
that.
Justin's
Chopping
got.
wood.
Stagecoach, I'd always sink it in the river.
Justin's
brother.
always getting sick. You know? What's that thing?
Malaria.
Oh, we're dating ourselves.
So the trail's already been blazing. We got to follow it. And during this point in time, when you land and he picks you up and he's from New York, you guys got that instant connection. He gives you that first bit of hope. And I mean, you hit the ground running during this period of time. So what's that time period look like when you get out here? You send out, Aunt Lou sends you out on the Greyhound. You touch down in Arizona. You're in a sober living home, and you get some hope. And what do you do with that hope?
So right away, I was told that at this halfway house, I got to get a sponsor.
It's a good idea.
Okay, so I got a sponsor, and then they said get a home group. So I got a home group because my sponsor had a home group. So I did what he did.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And then he told me to get a service commitment and in that home group. So that's what I did. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, I had never had any amount of sober time ever in my life, not even relief. Maybe the most was maybe 30 to 60 days at the most. And that was usually because I was either in a mental hospital or in a county jail where I couldn't get my hands on something. But all of a sudden, before I knew it, I got 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months. And then I become the assistant halfway house manager.
Shout out to all the house managers.
I reached the pinnacle, and then eventually became the manager of that house. And then little by slow, I started sponsoring a bunch of guys. And then some wonderful things started to happen. But what I did is when I did my 4-step, there were some things I left out.
Uh-oh.
Right.
I can relate.
Right. Some resentments I didn't want to put down there.
Yeah, we've been there, Justin. Yeah, me and you specifically been there. Yeah.
Relapse.
Yeah. And, when they talk about the only thing that matters is honesty and thoroughness, that is so, so important, right? Because I've seen guys, and so have you, who have done these magnificent 4-steps, pages and pages and pages and pages. And then we see them a short time later go out, and then if they're fortunate enough to come back. And every time I ask them what happened, and if they get back into the process, it's usually because they left something out on their inventory.
Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wonder why they fell. They never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock.
Man, right? Because I don't want you to judge me. I don't want you to look differently at me. And the reality of the situation is it's just the opposite, because when I do become vulnerable and you become vulnerable, that just draws us closer together and draws people to us, or to us to people, because, again, we're connectors. So I had left that out, and at 2.5 years sober, I relapsed. So now here I am. I'm getting high out here in Arizona, never been loaded before out here, and this is a trip. This is a whole different game out here of getting high. And I remember everyone telling me, they were telling me about Joe Arpaio and the tents and pink underwear and green bologna and peanut butter sandwiches. And I thought that stuff was an urban legend. Like, I didn't think like the vacancy sign and the tents. I thought all that was just an urban legend, but no, that shit was real.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, we've ate some slop trays, Justin.
Yeah.
We didn't eat any together. We were never in county jail together, but...
Right, and not only
Hold
that,
on. We all got our own technique to eating them. What was your technique to eating the slop trays? Did you have a technique? Did you wash it
you
out?
already know you got to take a soup packet.
Oh, the soup packet?
You got to take the seasoning, pour it on there, give it a little flavor. You got to give it something, or crush up some chips, put it in there.
Yeah, if you got a squeeze cheese, you need to do that. Or you could take it, they put it in the bag and they wash it all the way out, so it's just bare bones. What was your technique, Ron?
So what I would do is I would save the bread from the from the lab mows, right? And I would hollow out.
Oh, you make
and then I would make a funnel and fill it with the slop, right?
Okay,
Like
all
that.
right.
It's
The
like
slop
like
submarine sandwich.
Yeah, like a homemade Hot Pocket.
You know what I mean? The slop hot pocket.
Slop Hot Pocket.
Okay, all right. So you found the tents, and in county jail for that matter, and it's Arizona County Jail is one of the worst county jails there is. It's known for that, and if you haven't had a chance to experience it, I suggest that you don't, because it ain't pretty. And so you find county jail here. What happens from there?
County jail, man, and it's just the same story that a lot of us have gone through, in and out of, once I got introduced to getting in trouble out here, it wasn't long before I caught my number and went to prison for the first time. And then, it was that vicious cycle of in and out of jail and prison, being homeless and not being able to stay sober. But it was probably one of the most mentally exhausting points of my life, because I had just experienced 2.5 years of being sober, and I had an awesome life, right? Even though I was only scratching the surface and I had skimped on that 4-step, I was still getting a lot of the promises of the program. And I remember, what do they say, a belly full of booze and lungs full of smoke from whatever you're getting high, or a head full of AA and a belly full of booze, right? That's what they say will ruin your using, and it did for me, because I would sit there and get high and just think to myself that, well, if there is a God, he doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. And that's just how I felt, because going back to that narrative when I was a kid, I felt like I didn't matter. And I truly didn't feel like I mattered now, because now I am 3,500 miles from home. I don't have anybody or anything. And it was just so exhausting for me, my family. I put them through so much, and the people that loved and cared about me. And it wasn't a short time after my second or third prison sentence out here, I had found meth, and then it was big.
Yeah, well, you always say, you have, all three of us have the privilege of sharing our message, doing a ton of speaker meetings, and you always say that you were real pissed off at, Arizona and actually everyone in the whole entire nation, that they were hiding meth from you.
Yeah, they're hiding meth from me, because I really thought meth was the answer. I really did, because when you smoke crack, all you can do is smoke crack cocaine. When I do meth, there ain't enough stuff for me to do. I can do all your stuff, my stuff. I built a time machine. It was almost completed. It's in the bushes in Mesa still.
Yeah.
I invented a bunch of things. I figured out how to solve world hunger. There was a lot of stuff I accomplished on meth. Mm-hmm. But what it did for me is it brought me to a deep, dark mental place, right? And I just want to share this one part of my story, because it's very important. Because it leads to the spiritual experience that I had when I was in prison. And I'm going to give you the edited version. So here I am in that dark place mentally that we all know that methamphetamine takes us. I'm on the run. I only had a couple people in my life. There was 3 people, 2 other guys, and the only reason they were helping me was because they were afraid I was going to tell on them. And you were the other one, Jason. You were and you had a bunch of stuff going on in your life.
Yeah. So during this period of time, how we started the episode of us meeting in the phone room. We went on to create a friendship. We went on to start our own telemarketing. You imagine both of us in a relapse in a telemarketing. Can you imagine that, Justin?
Oh man.
You seeing me and him in a telemarketing office doing some biz ops. Shout out to all the biz oppers out there. And I hope
I would have known you, I would have been there.
Yeah, you would have been there.
You would have been there, and all the biz oppers out there. Hopefully this will hit the tablet and you'll be able to hear this, because most all of them are in prison.
Yeah.
And we had met and we've created this friendship that still is we're like you're like a brother to me. That after everything we've been through, and so. Everything was going so good in our telemarketing company till it went so bad, and we had both caught. We're not co-defendants. We both caught prison sentences, but during this period of time, is what Ron's speaking of, where he had caught a case, and why don't you pick it up from there?
Yeah, I'd caught this case, and I had got released because they scratched the charges while they were building a stronger case. But what it came down to is the undercover officer that was involved they weren't ready for him to come out yet. So I was out for another 7 or 8 months, something like that. And then I got re-indicted, and I went on the run, and I end up in a hotel room. And at this point in my life, I had lost the ability to think clearly and talk. You know, I used to talk with, I created my own language.
Yeah, you did.
It was called Tweakinese with the Eastern dialect.
Yeah,
and
tweaking. You ever spoke Tweakinese, Justin?
No.
It kind of sounds like this.
Okay.
But you got to move your shoulders as you're doing it.
You got to do the Patrick Buell. You ever notice he does that? Shout out New Method Healing Center's program manager, Patrick Buell. He's doing one of these things all the time. He's always, if anyone ever sees him, he's going to be mad about this. I owe you an amends. You didn't deserve to be treated this way. But you know what I'm talking about? He does this shoulder thing.
Shoulder.
Yeah, he's doing some weird shit all the time. Shout out, Pat.
This reminds me of Star Wars.
Hey, but what was crazy is Jason understood it. It was weird. We got each other. You know what I mean? So here I am in this hotel room, and I'm in this deep paranoia. I believe that, you know, all these different people are coming to get me. I go out on the balcony at 2:30 in the morning, and I fire 4 shots into the parking lot, Motel 6, 27th Avenue in Indian School. There's nobody out there. I run back in the room in a panic, and I decide that I'm going to kill myself. The only way I can explain it is I felt like somebody took their hands and rammed them in my chest and ripped me wide open. And I don't know if anybody can relate to that huge hole, right?
Yeah.
There had always been a hole there, but this particular time it was a feeling that I never felt before. So I come up with this plan to kill myself. I end up taking the gun and putting it in my mouth. And when I pull the trigger, nothing happens. I hear this loud clicking sound, and this electricity shoots through my body. It freaked me out. It was like a Pulp Fiction moment, you know? I sit up, and I'm crying, and I'm a mess, and I can't even kill myself, and I rack the gun again, and I put it in my mouth again, and I pull the trigger, and I didn't hear the clicking sound, and I didn't feel the electricity. But what ended up happening is when the guys showed up at the hotel the next morning, and they seen the place was trashed, and they didn't know what had happened, and I was talking, and they couldn't understand what I was saying. When they took the gun apart, the firing pin to the gun was in the bottom of the magazine. When I fired those 4 shots in the parking lot, the gun had malfunctioned and broke. I didn't know it then, but it was God doing for me what I could not do for myself. A short time later, I end up in prison for 7 years, you know. And when I get there, I just want to share this one part about this experience is I get there, and I'm a broken man, and the man puts his hand out to me, and he invited me to come to a meeting. And I did. I went to that meeting, and these 3 men took care of me, man. They loved me. They cared about me. They made me feel like I mattered for one of the first times in my life. I had found something. I didn't know what it was, but I found something. And before long, I became the AA guy in the yard. That's what I was doing.
And I think at all 3 points, all 3 of us were the AA guy on the yard. But you want to know something, Justin, that's different about his story between both of ours is he found recovery as soon as he got to the yard. Yeah. We took a few years to get there. I mean, we needed me and you both needed a little bit more pain and misery.
Some more research. Add more to your story.
Yeah, we needed more research for that resume, right? That we were building, that we didn't know we were building, but we were building one. My mom hates hearing that I was building a resume all these years. You didn't know what was going on. I had a plan. Yeah. Right, and she hates hearing. Yeah, look at me. How you like me now? You know.
Poor mom.
But you know, so that's what happens. You become the AA guy on the yard, and you're sponsoring every guy on the yard, and you're getting lit. You're writing World Services, and you're getting books, and you're getting meeting rooms. The same thing that all 3 of us did at one point in time in this prison sentence when all 3 of us found recovery in prison. And, finding recovery in prison, a lot of people think, well, you're in prison. Yeah, you live with like 27 drug dealers in prison.
Sure.
Right. And so you go on this next, journey of, starting meetings and sponsoring the whole damn yard and teaching back to basics, which we've all taught. And, putting that hand out that we're responsible for, the AA, I'm responsible, prayer and, our mantra or whatever you want to call it, a pledge or whatever it is. And, that's what you did for the next 7 years. But there's one particular, guy that you met on the yard, and there's one particular moment that kind of ties in everything for your burning bush spiritual experience moment. So why don't you share, take that opportunity briefly to, share that moment?
Sure. So at this point, right, I'm about a year sober, and I'm sponsoring all these guys, and I'm still not 100% sold on the whole God concept, right? But I was willing to believe that there was something. Now, I was in the beginning, I believed in something, but I didn't know if he cared about me that much. But what I did know is that my life continued to get better when I served others in prison. This guy, shout out Dean, this guy came up
Shout
to
out
me.
Dean.
What's his nickname?
Nitro.
What's your nickname you
Dean,
gave him?
Dean actually came and helped me one time in the New Freedom parking lot. I locked my keys in the car, and he's like, wait a minute, I'll be right back. I got you.
Yeah.
Shout out Dean.
Got my keys out.
Oh,
Shout out Big Dummy.
Big Dummy.
Yeah, I wanted you to say it, brother. Yeah, you got to finish my punchlines here,
Okay.
brother. This is how this thing works.
Yeah, my Big Dummy.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I was trying to be nice.
Okay, my bad.
Okay, so I had invited him to meetings a bunch of times. I knew he was one of the players on the yard, and I knew he was strung out. And I would continuously invite him and be kind, because that was what God had put on my heart. It didn't matter if you were one of the program guys or not. I had to practice these principles in all of my affairs. And when you can do that in prison, it can be tricky at times, right? So we tell the story two different ways. He showed up for a meeting. I seen this look on his face, and I thought he was there to mess me up. I thought he was there to smash me, you know what I mean? Because sometimes the sober guy isn't the most popular guy on the yard. But that's not what he was there for. He was there to ask me for my help. We shared our first cry together. He put his arms around me and asked me to help him, that he couldn't live that way anymore. And at that moment, I felt so insignificant. I didn't know what I could possibly do for him except take him through the instructions, right? So that's what I did. We got to the third step. We're out on the yard, where we made this decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. And we say the prayer together, and the instructions were, when I get done saying the prayer, I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave you alone with God. Now, a lot of people don't read what comes next after that prayer, because they all skip to the fourth step, right? But it said, launching into this vigorous course of action. But there's something that comes before that. And what it says, to paraphrase, if you do this prayer and you mean it, with the right person at the right time, in effect, sometimes a very great one is going to be felt at once. And I never understood what that meant, because I would always skim over that. That was for other people. That wasn't for me. Say this prayer, I get up, and when I get up, I put my hand on his shoulder, and electricity shot through my body, and it freaked me out. And automatically, it took me back to the hotel room the night I tried to kill myself. And my skin was tingling. And I was walking back to my house, and as I was walking back to my house, I felt like I was floating. And when I got to my house, I sat on the bed, and I was really confused and freaked out, but I felt a way I had never felt before. When I sat, I get choked up when I think about it. When I sat on my bed and I put my feet flat on the floor, that gaping hole closed. And this intuitive thought came in the back of my head. And what it said to me was, what this intuitive thought was, this is exactly why you didn't die that night in the hotel room. You needed to be here at this moment to help this man. Keep doing what you're doing. And I sat there and I looked at the wall, and the next thing that came to my mind was, and this is an original thought, I heard it somewhere along the line, but if I begin to change the way I look at things, the things that I look at change, right? Mm-hmm. What I look at become my thoughts become my words, and my words become my actions, and that's who I am today. I want to be dependable and accountable. I want to be a good friend. I want to be a good boyfriend. I want to be a good son. I want to try to be a good father. All this type of stuff I need, and the only way that I need to accomplish, and the only way I can accomplish it is by getting those things to line up. There's 18 inches between your head and your heart, and mine was disconnected for 40 years. And finally, for the first time in my life, that connection was made. And my next 6 years in prison was the most amazing time in my life. I was as free as could be.
Yeah. Justin, when you look back on that time when we all found recovery together, when you attached to that time, of course we were away from the girlfriends, the wives, the kids, and the family, and aside from all that, man, we had some good times, man.
We absolutely did, and one of the things I remember, and you talk about it now, is I was on that pink cloud, right? And we get to experience that joy of helping other people. I've never had it. I have purpose in my life now, right? And I know for a fact that we go through all these things in our past. I used to have something against God, right? Why would you put me through all these things? Resentments, right? Resentful, man. My past has now became my greatest asset in helping other people. Everything we've gone through today, the suicide attempts, all these things is to help somebody else that's going through a struggle. I don't care if it's a DCS case that somebody's going through. If you've gone through it, now we're more well equipped to help somebody get through a DCS case. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and well, but it's only when we do our part that we, are able to do those things, right? And so that's what all three of us choose to do today, because the power of God that flows through us, it's our actions, right? But we channel that power for strength to continue to get up and do it every single day. But we all had that experience, when I found recovery on the art, aside from being away from my wife and my daughter at the time, aside from that, man, it was some of the greatest years of my life. The friendships that we still have, and all the many guys that we were on, shout out North Unit Fellowship, you know what it is, right? The North Unit All-Stars, from all those men, we still get to do life together because recovery is a team sport, and experiencing and recovering and going through it with those men is something that I'll cherish forever. And that's what we all did, and the same thing, right? Same thing for you, man. You hit the ground running for, 7 years, dude. You were doing the damn deal. And you got out, and, the crazy thing about it is that same guy who, you had that spiritual experience with, he gets out a couple years before you, and, a couple years, when he gets out, a couple years, like I said, I'll repeat it 3 times just so everybody heard it, right? Mm-hmm. He tells you before he leaves that I'm going to be here to pick you up.
Sure.
Man, Justin, how many times we hear someone say, "I get out and put some money in your book"?
I'm gonna write you a letter.
Yeah, you don't hear a damn thing, right? Yeah. And so Ron's like, yeah, okay, cool, And so when Ron gets released from prison, that man 3 years later is asleep in the car in the parking lot waiting to pick you up. He picked you up, man. He picked you up. He put you on, had a place for you to live. He had a job for you to live. You start welding. You were able to save some money when you were down, right? And you get out and you got a place and you get plugged into recovery and your life starts to change. And then you have this realization that welding isn't fulfilling you, right? It isn't your desired path. It isn't God's will for you. It isn't your purpose, man. And you decide to make that move and you get into working in behavioral health at a reentry facility. What was that time period like for you?
Sure. For me, it brought everything full circle. I just want to back up for 1 second because as we've been talking about my story, the resentment like I had against God and not believing that God wanted anything to do with me. My conception of God today is so different. Today, this is what I believe. I believe that my God wears people clothes. My belief is God created each and every one of us. If you believe it or not, that's what I believe. And I believe when he created you, he left his thumbprint on you because we have that inside of us, each and every one of us. And I hear the messages I need to hear through you and everybody I interact with. If I stay present, I hear the solutions, not necessarily for my problems, but maybe for somebody else's to be able to share. So when I get out of prison, that's what I believe, and I knew that I was plugged in right away with CMA and AA, and I knew that that's what I had to be involved in. I got a sponsor and I got that home group, but there felt like something missing, and I got into working in behavioral health. And it's been one of the most fulfilling things ever in my life. I never thought in a million years that I'd be doing this for a career. This is what I believe God wants me to be doing. And it's so fulfilling, and none of it would be possible without having men like you blaze the trail for me to be able to let me know that I'm valuable and I'm worth it. And if anybody hears anything that we say today or that I say, please know, no matter what you're going through or what happened, that you get to that place in your life that you matter and you're worth all the effort you're going to put into yourself. I promise you that you have 3 living, breathing miracles right here. You have a building full of people that are living, breathing miracles that will tell you the same thing. Don't give up on yourself.
Yeah. And don't give up, man. And so, you embark on this journey in behavioral health and you got service commitments and, look at his TikTok, Ronnie No Matter What. I mean, search it out. He's also the co-host of my personal podcast, aside from, Sanctuary Radio. He's my new co-host on my show. Justin's been on that show as well. And, he's worked in behavioral health, and he's built a great reputation of keeping client near number one and keeping boundaries and being ethical and doing all those things. And so, when Sanctuary had the opportunity to bring him over, man, it was an easy decision for us all to make. And I get to work with my brother every day.
Can you believe this?
I mean, it's a crazy. We went from, and look,
working together,
and we're still sitting here working together with headsets on, brother. Just like right here we are.
Hey, and another beautiful thing is I don't think any of us have any indictments, right?
No, and
we're good.
We're good.
We got our I got my license back. Right, I don't have to look over my shoulder.
Yeah,
no indictments, no court dates.
Yeah, I mean, we got all that going on right now.
I like that. We do have headsets.
Yeah, we do have headsets on. And so, we can sit here and talk about, all three of us, the promises, the blessings, getting the kids back, recreating relationships, and getting the cars and getting our own place and, moving out and stepping up from, living, whether it's sober living, getting your own apartment or getting your own townhouse or getting your own house or getting all your kids back like Justin has and winning DCS cases and, advancing through the career path that we've all taken. We've all started from the bottom in this field and we're all working our way up. That used to be our hype jam, started from the bottom. Now we're here. Remember that Drake song, that was our hype jam, right? And just to see how our lives have gotten better and better and better. You talked about being on a pink cloud, and in my experience, as long as you continue to do what you did to get on that cloud, you don't have to come off of it. And that's what we've all done. And so, Ron is the newest member of the Sanctuary team. I feel like, Jay-Z and Rockefeller, like I need to put a chain on your neck right now, right? But you're the newest member, man. And we couldn't just be more, grateful to have you as part of our team. He's over here at the IOP clinic, and it's just a blessing to have you here, man. But again, our shout out to this show as well today. We got Justin on the show. Thank you for being the co-host today, man.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come down to our studio, man, and be on the show. New Method has residentials, right? Getting ready to open up New Method 2 and New Method 3, and there's, plenty more availabilities. One house is going to be a female house. So why don't you just briefly say one thing, quickly here about New Method?
Well, New Method, like I said, quickly, you get some real recovery if you come to us, right? And we're about to have a lot of facilities open up, some women facilities, some 16-bed facilities with a commercial kitchen, have a chef coming on board. And everybody at New Method cares, right?
Yeah. So where could they find you at, real quick? Where could they find you at?
They can find me at newmethodhealingcenter.com. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Justin Frakes.
Yeah.
I'm connected with New Method on there.
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with anything they got going on, man, get in touch with Justin. He's the guy, sober living. He does admissions.
Holler at my boy.
Holler at him, right? And as always, man, if you want to get in touch with us here at Sanctuary, come be a part of. You have someone desperately in need of recovery, search us out. Our website, sanctuaryrc.com. Check out the website, man. Get in touch with us. The admission line is on there. Look us up on our social media, Sanctuary Recovery Centers. You can find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the grams, all the medias.
Yeah.
You could find us, Sanctuary Recovery Centers. Please reach out. Recovery is a team sport, man. I'm so grateful that you guys are on my team. And remember, our episodes drop, every single Friday. Something new, a new piece of content will be coming out. So continue to be supportive of Sanctuary Radio. We love you. We appreciate you. So thank you both for being on the show today.